What is BIG-IP DNS or Global Traffic Manager? Before understanding BIG-IP DNS, let's first understand what is DNS or domain name system. So DNS primarily resolves domain names into IP addresses. Domain names into IP addresses, right? But DNS does more than that, because sometimes we create pointer recurs or PTR recurs in DNS to resolve IP address to domain name, right? Not just like domain name to IP address. Also, we create MX record, mail exchanger record to point mail server, like TXT records. In fact, a lot of TXT records nowadays are, we asked to create TXT records to prove ownership of the domain name or authenticity of the domain. So TXT record, CNAME record, canonical name record, like. But mainly, I'm going to focus like to one of the role or function performed by DNS, that is resolving domain names into IP addresses, right? So in order to understand DNS name to IP translation mechanism, let me quickly take one example here. So let's say our company, our nation has two web server, server 1 and server 2, running same application, example.com and also example.com. Server in 1 is in my primary data center and server 2 is in my DR site, right? So server 1 IP 1.1.1 and server 2 IP is 2.2.2. okay, and DNS server, maybe company internal DNS server or any DNS server may be hosted somewhere in cloud or in different data center. So DNS server has now two recurs, a recurs like example.com, example.com. So same domain name and pointing to two different IPs, 222.222, and that is possible in standard DNS. I mean, like DNS running on Windows or Linux operating system. Client machine opens browser, types example.com, right, a domain name. Let us assume like there is no IP address in the DNS client cache table, and client machine is pointing to the DNS server, and DNS server IP could be anything like public IP address. So what happens here, client send DNS query to DNS server that can I have IP address of example.com. Now DNS server like authoritative for these two servers are a domain like example.com has two recurs, example.com pointing to 1.1 and 2.2.2, right? So what we can do here, we can enable round robin option, means like DNS then would provide both IPs to the client, that example.com, like there are two IPs 1.1.1 and 2.2.2, maybe two different client machine IPs in different order. It's just like round robin. So what happens next then, client machine then straight away send request to DNS server, web server in the primary data center or maybe in the DR site, in fact, right? Because both IPs, yes, provided, and we have configured round robin. Now let us assume that your objective is, like to provide only one IP 1.1.1 as long a server in the primary data center is operating normally, there is no issue with the server. So as long server is like in healthy, is operating, like connection number of connections have not reached to the maximum threshold value, then you don't want a 222 IP address to be used, right? So can we do that? Can we configure like our DNS server to provide 1.1.1 IP address as long 1.1.1 is healthy, operating normally, reachable? If there is any issue, 1.1.1 goes down, becomes unreachable, then only DNS server so just then provide 222 IP address, right? Is that possible with DNS server? No, that is not possible, right? Even if let's say both I want like both IPs to be returned by the DNS server right? Maybe for the load sharing purpose, there are two servers, 1.1, 2.2. I want like these two IPs to be responded against DNS queries. Now, if 1.1.1 goes down, becomes unavailable, then what DNS does now? Still DNS provides both IPs. DNS is not aware about the health of one of the server. The server is still available, reachable, healthy or not. What about the round trip time? Performance, maybe server 1 network is very slow, very congested. Will that impact name to IP translation? No. Okay. Why it is so? Because standard DNS means Windows or Linux or any other DNS server means no intelligent DNS resolution. There is no way to do health check monitor. There is no way to like set the priority, right? So DNS server is doing good job resolving domain names into IP addresses, IPs to domain names, service records, a mail exchanger, TXT records, right? All correct. But is that DNS server is intelligent? No, right? So it's one of the area wherein like some improvement required in fact, right? Because DNS server is not intelligent. Okay. Plus security is another concern, like whether IPs returned against the domain name is intact or is spoofed or changed, or like some like malicious activities in the name to IP translation. Is there any way to verify like replies or answers provided by DNS servers? Is there any way? Is there any security like DNSSEC kind of thing? Plus is there any way to speed up name to IP translation? No, right? But what about F5 Big-IP DNS? F5 Big-IP DNS or GTM is doing same again like name to IP translation. But F5 Big-IP DNS server or GTM, Global Traffic Manager, is basically a wide area load balancer, you can say, like, because it's doing global server load balancing, GSLB. But there are main three features which differentiate F5 Big-IP DNS with other DNS servers. One is intelligent DNS resolution. Another, accelerated DNS, and the third one is secure DNS. Intelligent, accelerated, and secure DNS server, right? So intelligent means like if F5 Big-IP DNS or GTM has been used, right, as a DNS, means like Big-IP DNS or GTM. So, and if there are like 3 different web servers in 3 different data centers and maybe in single data center, right? Or even we can also integrate your local traffic manager with the Big-IP DNS server. Both can be done, right? Because if let's say there are 3 servers behind LTM, local traffic manager, so yes, that is also possible. We can integrate local traffic manager with DNS also, or maybe in independent servers, like only one server, server 2, server 3, different data centers. There are 4 different data centers. In one data center, there is also LTM, 3 servers, and like in different data centers, only one server. And if we have successfully configured Big-IP DNS, LTM is also integrated with Big-IP DNS, then what happens here? First, health check monitor. So F5 Big-IP DNS performs like health check just to ensure reachability and availability of servers or resources. IPs are returned only if resources are available. It's not doing blind name to IP translation. If somebody asks like DNS server that can I have IP address of example.com, and if let us assume server 1 is not reachable, not available, So BIGIP DNS server will not provide IP address of server 1 because server 1 is not reachable at first place. So F5 Big-IP DNS means health check monitor, first benefit. Next, intelligent DNS, as I mentioned, intelligent apart from health check, F5 Big-IP means intelligent DNS server. So here like we have like bunch of like load balancing methods that can be configured, tuned on F5 Big-IP DNS server, right? If we want that only DNS server would provide IP address of only one server, like the primary DC, not the DR side, that is possible. We have like global availability health load balancing method, global availability. So with the help of this global availability load balancing method, we can configure like DC and DR concept, right? If you want like IPs to be returned on the basis of geolocation, because maybe one of the server is in US data center and the server is in India data center. So anybody like who is putting up nearby US data center, their request would be directed to US data center only, India region, then to the India. That's what geolocation based load balancing method or routing method rather I would say, or maybe on the basis of performance, that is like round trip timer. If F5 Big-IP DNS can compute or can calculate, find out round trip timer to different like resources hosted in different or multiple data centers, so on that can be another criteria of load balancing method, right? So there are multiple ways in fact, and that's configurable. So we configure like different load balancing method on F5 Big-IP DNS. So apart from doing like health check monitor, even load balancing can be configured on the basis of like round trip timer, performance, geolocation, priority, that is like global availability, and that's what intelligent DNS resolution is. Accelerated DNS is another very good feature available in F5 Big-IP DNS, and accelerated DNS is there is one of the feature here known as DNS Express, right? So we can make use of that DNS Express. So to just speed up name to IP translation, let me make this room for me. Okay, so accelerated DNS is another very important feature, and this DNS Express feature, because GTM system performs like a zone transfer from a primary DNS server and then answer queries or the GTM receive as an authoritative secondary DNS server. So name to IP translation would be very smooth, fast. So if really you want to speed up name to IP translation, so you can make use of this accelerated DNS server. So accelerated DNS server is just to speed up name to IP address resolution. Secure DNS server is another good feature in F5 Big-IP DNS, and we can make use of this DNSSEC. So DNSSEC provides security for clients when they receive a DNS response. So really, if you are looking for intelligent name to IP translation, accelerated DNS, secure DNS, then yes, you should go with F5 Big-IP DNS. So DNS is like just a DNS server, F5 Big-IP GTM or DNS, but doing like intelligent name to IP resolution, health check monitor, accelerated DNS, secure DNS, right? So when DNS is provisioned on your F5 Big-IP, now let me show you. So if DNS is provisioned, then you will find like first option here, GTM listener. So because we start like creating GTM listener, and even not only the listener, in fact some other like configuration also required, like the creating data centers, wide IPs, and I have already created a lab workbook for this F5 Big-IP DNS or intelligent, right? Very similar to that I have done on for the ASM is an interview question, ASM lab book is here. So right, for GTM also I have prepared a proper lab workbook, and if you follow this lab workbook properly, so you'll understand like first step is creating a data center is the location of group of GTM system. Alright, so this way, this is the lab topology, like one GTM, there are two LTM integrated with GTM. So how you can move along? So creating first data centers, you can name it global DC, DC1, DC2, and once like you have done with like creating data center, then also you can do the same with CLI also. I have mentioned CLI commands, and then GTM system, okay. And if you adding LTM, like integration of LTM with the GTM, because LTM job is like local traffic management, like. And on the next you will find here, after doing integration, then you will create virtual servers in LTM as you do like LTM configuration, right? And finally, after doing all this, we just go ahead and create IP pool, then listener object. Listener is very similar to the virtual server object that we create in F5 Big-IP LTM. So I mentioned all that, and this lab workbook is available like when you buy like this F5 Big-IP DNS GTM course, right? So if you really want to go this F5 Big-IP DNS, so like is the sample one, sample lab workbook, like you can see here, like just you can click and open. So you'll find the sample lab workbook, right? How you can start building your lab. And if you like unlock all the modules, then you would find complete lab workbook here, about certification, interview questions, IPs here. So lab workbook, right? So once it is unlocked, then you will see like the lab workbook, this one. So very well prepared, and for different chapters, right? So along with this recorded videos, you will find all like secure DNS, even DNS Express, right? With topology, caching DNS server. So lab 9 so is completely like based on each module, like in fact, right? So total there are 9 or 10. So not only the videos, even properly created lab workbook. And of course you'll find complete explanation here about isolated, intelligent, LDNS pros, matrix, load balancing method, as I mentioned, right? Monitors, and like DNSSEC logs, notification, and same with WAF also, even like in troubleshooting. So in troubleshooting, of course, like no lab workbook, because it's based on real issues, real scenarios. So if you look at the use cases here, and it's proper video solutions, like showing like all the step of troubleshooting, TCP reset causes with explanation, troubleshooting packet drops, very common in F5 Big-IP, certificate related issues, very common if you are working as a F5 engineer, like load balancer, LTM, GTM. So these topics really very important. Software upgrade in HA mode without like downtime, right? Without asking for any maintenance window from your client. So you can do software upgrade also. And there are some interview questions and advanced topics here. So I have like very well prepared like LTM, GTM, ASM, and troubleshooting F5 Big-IP. So these three, like LTM, GTM, and WAF, like short notes, presentation file, interview questions, videos, plus lab workbook. Most important and super important is the lab workbook. Anyway, so coming back to this LTM, so here like we once like we have just done everything, then finally we create a listener object here. So listener object means like accepting or listening DNS queries. So here we create listener object. So listener object is very similar to virtual server object that we create in F5 Big-IP LTM, right? But in production network, we create two different listener. One like to listen on TCP port number 53, another for UDP 53, right? Because DNS uses both TCP and as well as UDP 53. Large like packet size, obviously like between DNS to DNS, TCP protocol is used. For zone transfer, even primary to secondary, TCP port number 53 is used. And in standard name to IP translation resolution, when DNS client send request to DNS server, then UDP port 53 is used, right? And F5 Big-IP is like version 17, but you will not find like much difference or differences between version 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Very like almost very similar options. Yes, in ASM and other modules there are some advanced features. Otherwise, you will find the same, like delivery listener, load balancing methods, pool here. The same way you go here, right? You create pool and zone transfer also, DNS6 zone as I mentioned. So you will find here. Okay. So I hope you understand like what is BIGIP DNS or GTM. So BIGIP DNS or GTM, Global Traffic Manager, is intelligent name to IP translation. Intelligent name to IP translation, right? In next section, what I will do, I will just do side-by-side comparison between F5 Big-IP DNS, F5 Big-IP DNS, and the AWS Route 53 DNS, because Route 53 is also intelligent DNS, because route means like routing base, 53 you understand, like port number 53. And in Azure also we have traffic manager load balancer, traffic manager. So in next section, what I will do side-by-side comparison between 3 different intelligent DNS servers. One, like that is F5 Big-IP DNS, another AWS Route 53, and the third one is Azure Traffic Manager, right? Because Azure Traffic Manager is also intelligent DNS, intelligent name to IP translation, same like Route 53 in AWS. Okay. So I'll explain like differences and similarities between 3 different intelligent DNS servers, because Azure and AWS, these 2 public cloud computing providers, are also very popular nowadays. But not all services are like good enough, in fact, right? So we do like let's migrate infrastructure resources from on-prem to cloud, but still we are not utilizing or using all the services provided by these cloud computing providers. Right, some of the services or infrastructure resources are good enough, but not all. So we need to understand that, and that's the reason like I've seen like a lot of companies still deploying F5 Big-IP DNS in public cloud. So if the applications hosted in the cloud for any load balancing purpose, still companies prefer to have F5 Big-IP DNS or F5 Big-IP LTM or F5 Big-IP system, ASM maybe, in the cloud. Right, even though cloud computing providers providing like very similar solution, WAF or web application firewall, very similar to your F5 Big-IP ASM, intelligent load balancer like traffic manager, Route 53, very similar to your F5 Big-IP DNS. To compete with LTM, F5 Big-IP LTM, even Azure has load balancer, application gateway load balancer. In AWS also there is load balancer. Okay, network and gateway load balancer, application load balancer in AWS. But we need to understand like differences, similarities, administration, troubleshooting, visibility, right? Visibility is another important reason why companies still prefer to have on-prem resources or maybe like vendors, appliances in cloud, right? So next section would be comparison between 3 different intelligent DNS servers.